Good afternoon. My name's Brendan Buckingham. I work in the IBM technology division, and I'm the UK SME for data and AI. What I wanted to do is spend a few moments with you this afternoon, just looking at some of the trends that we see in the AI space going forward, and discussing those trends and how they might actually affect you more directly over the next 12 to 18 months. Clearly, we've seen a massive growth, particularly in the area of generative AI. We initially saw ChatGPT get 1 million users in a week, 100 million users within 2 months. And there's certainly a broad-reaching, deep impact that most market analysts and companies see in terms of effect on the business market and the way organizations operate in whatever dimension they wish to operate going forward. But all of this is going to be for nothing if we can't actually use this technology in a responsible way. And then that's going to require us to put trust first, both with the people who are affected by this, but in the way we construct and use this going forward ethically. And the second real trend and guardrail that I think governs everything that we're going to be talking about in the next few minutes really has to be around how we apply this to actual real business need. It's all very well building technology for technology's sake, but all of the trends I'm talking about really have to be associated with driving enterprise or business capability at scale effectively. So these capabilities become useful tools that augment what humans are already doing. So let's start with some of the trends that we're seeing. Certainly, we've mentioned ChatGPT earlier, and it's easy to believe that really one model rules them all is the way to go, a big, large general model answering all of the questions. And indeed, as you've seen, there's been a lot of public excitement around that. But most of the enterprises we're now talking to, and indeed most of the market, are now seeing the future as being multimodal. In the same way that you don't have one tool in your toolbox, and very rarely does anyone have one tool to complete complex tasks, we believe that the future will involve using multiple types of models to cater for a wide variety of use cases. We'll need a variety of those models, which will actually work together within an ecosystem, and indeed be developed by a variety of vendors who will tailor those models to different use cases. Moving away from that single monolith architecture, perhaps a black box that people don't understand and feed questions and then get very spurious answers to. We believe that there will probably still be general purpose models of scale just for logic and reasoning, but these won't be as targeted as the smaller models for classification, routing, etc. And we're seeing also a growth in domain-specific fine-tuned models. And what we mean by that is very small models, and indeed we have them, such as IBM Granite models, that can be trained by an organization to perform a specific task pertinent to their expertise or requirements, which means the model works for them in a highly effective way and a highly accurate way. And indeed, as you can see on the slide, we've worked really with Meta and various other organizations to really look at how we do this in an open source way so that customers can benefit from the expertise right across the industry, and also can benefit from also the effect of the industry looking at how we can do this ethically and safely. Trend number 2, bigger isn't always better. As we've said, large models do have a capability which are great at heavy lifting of logic and reasoning and performing complex tasks. But a large model really isn't the total answer here. We're seeing now smaller models. So if you think a large language model can be, 100, 200, 300 billion parameters, that draws a lot of power just to run it, and indeed costs a lot of money to ask it questions every time you want to ask it. But we're seeing a growth in smaller models that are highly tuned to specific tasks and are very, very capable of being able to do this. So small models, as you see here, 7 billion parameter Mistral models or Llama 13 billion parameter. These are all types of models that are available in the market and lots of people are using, but are highly effective at performing tasks and at a much cheaper rate and cost than bigger models. The next trend really we're seeing is, it builds on that models further, is really what I alluded to earlier, domain-specific models. Certainly in your roles, when you start to look at use cases where you can apply AI, it starts to really be around how can I use AI within a process or an application, or to augment something that a human is doing to help them become more effective. It will be very relevant that that model is tuned and built to the tasks that you're thinking about to make it effective. And we are seeing the growth of companies actually tuning their models to be more effective. And indeed, we've built a whole architecture to allow companies to fine-tune the base models that we have built. But indeed, we're seeing third-party vendors who are starting to come along and build specific industry models for specific organizations along these lines. Trend 4. We believe generative AI and AI generally will continue to scale. I think there's a lot of interest in the market in seeing how this technology can be applied to really answer several problems. But these are some of the areas to think about and aspects that need to be considered. Data privacy is key. Certainly, when we start to tuning and training models, it's really important that we understand the data we're using, that the data in the model is actually filtered, there aren't privacy issues within it, that the data we're using is effective, but also data residency becomes key, both in terms of privacy. What are we passing into that model? Where is that model? What are we sending out from that model? How are we managing privacy aspects? I think many of us have heard about hallucinations. Certainly there are ways to actually minimize the effect of hallucinations using enterprise data tuning and techniques that are out there in the market, and applying these effectively is really critical. Answering the skills challenge. Skills are scarce. It's an intense market competition for skills, and indeed that is also going to be a challenge within this space going forward. Then compute and cloud usage, carbon understanding, and those types of things. Large models are going to take a lot of compute and cost a lot of money, and therefore potentially cause an issue with sustainability and carbon burn. So actually using small targeted models is a much more effective way. And indeed, we're seeing those get down to a level of models that run on devices. And clearly this market is changing rapidly. So actually choosing technology or platforms that lock you in are going to actually restrict you from the great innovation that's going on in what is still a nascent market. That's not a reason to sit and wait to use this market, but it's more a question of is how you're deploying this technology open enough to be able to actually adopt new technology as it comes on in a very effective way to answer the business challenges and the technical challenges you face within your domain. The next area for me is probably the most important area of all. It's how do we scale all of this AI safely? What's critical to that, and very close to IBM's heart, and we've been doing AI since 1956, and so we've built up a lot of understanding of the benefits and also how AI should be managed so it can be ethical and safe. And we believe it really starts from how your organization builds its ethical stance, how it wants to represent itself to its employees, and in your case, to the citizens that it serves, is going to be really critical. But it's not just enough to set that agenda. It's also how that manifests itself through the delivery of AI and generative AI. We believe that AI governance is really critical and have built expertise over the years, but also a platform of tooling that allows you to support that in the areas that you can see down below here. So those areas are life cycle governance. Can we govern, catalog and monitor all of the AI models that we're running across our enterprise? Can we monitor their performance, being sure that we understand where they are in the development? Are they adhering to the guidelines that we set in the next stage, which is the risk management? Do we understand what model we're using for what task and what the risk associated with that task is? And have we taken the appropriate measures to mitigate those risks, or in some cases not perform those actions because the risks are unacceptable, both from a policy perspective, also from an ethical perspective? Do we know and have we signed off those risks? And is what has been built following those guardrails that we've set in terms of mitigating that risk? This is a critical action before we even start building our solutions. And the last bit is compliance. Do we understand how we adhere to regulations that we might have, but not just at the time we're building AI, but it's critical that we monitor that AI in production while it's running day in, day out, so that, for example, a piece of AI doesn't become biased or doesn't actually drift from its KPI, doesn't start hallucinating and sending out unreadable answers. All of those areas are critical. So having a platform that allows you to manage that end-to-end governance eventually will allow you to deliver industrial scale AI safely. Trend number 6, a hybrid first approach. Now, we mentioned earlier data privacy, but there are other things that actually affect how you deploy and where you deploy your AI. Yet sure, everyone can host a model in the cloud. That's vastly different from actually engineering a solution, where generative AI or AI is part of a business process. And critical to that is, where is the data? So increasingly, we're seeing organizations wanting to run AI where it matters. And this might be for privacy reasons on premise. It might be on devices out on the street in your case. It could be in the public cloud, the private cloud. But indeed, we're seeing increasingly that it may well be a mix of all of those things. So whatever approach you take should be able to support all of those criteria. And that's certainly a cornerstone of IBM's approach. Certainly, we're seeing great advances, and some of these come with them massive benefits and potentially risks. Adoption of multimodal models will increase. So you've seen very large potential models from organizations like Google that can start doing video from text. So describing something and having a video generate from that text is something that we see a lot of. And there are many other multimodal models. Indeed, we've done some work with NASA to look at all of their satellite imagery and then start to interpret that into sustainability issues, where the burn scars are on the planet, where floodplains are on the planet, and use that to interpret how we might plant trees or reforest, etc., and do other things like that. We will see the growth in these models where one model works with another model to provide a solution. They won't necessarily all be these very large models, as we said earlier. It could be gluing several models together to build really massive and potentially very effective solutions. But with that, there's a risk. Creating video from text. Do you know that the video is authentic? Are people faking video, etc.? These are all things that I'm sure you're more than well aware of. Another area that we see some real power is from AI assistance. these are natural language focused assistants. And indeed, we within IBM use these cognitive assistants to drive our whole AI infrastructure. Everyone uses that interface to get instant answers to questions, to be able to be directed to systems, to generate letters for mortgage companies or whatever it might be. It's our whole interaction with HR is through these knowledgeable interfaces. And indeed, if you're a NatWest customer, this is how you would interact with NatWest. But we also use it in the National Health Service for HR in certain areas where you have nurses working 24/7. It's really pertinent that they're focused on the patients, but their HR questions are handled at the time they're awake, when probably HR's not even in the office, so 24/7 HR. But we're seeing this spread further to enterprise is offering these assistants for all sorts of interactions, to experts to define answers to problems where they might be, where they need better experience. But we're also seeing departmental people build agents to help them better perform their tasks. And indeed, we have some tooling in IBM, which our consultants use to help them be more effective of consultants, to set up scenarios with personas and indeed see how those personas might react. These all use large language models, but we see really AI assistants as a really good on-ramp and a safe way to start building your interaction with large language models. And as I mentioned, there are a vast amount of use cases that have big business effect. I don't plan on reading all of these because I think you can see them, but they're in a vast array of different areas, from things like marketing right through to IT automation, environmental intelligence, platform engineering, operations, compliance. All of these areas are use cases, and there are many beyond these that we are working with, legal, etc., and engineering, and many areas beyond that. But in each case, if you choose the right use case, and if you choose the right technology, and sometimes that's not AI, sometimes that's a traditional technology, but sometimes AI can really drive some massive improvements on performance. Always remembering that it should be delivered ethically. It's about augmenting human behavior, and it's really about transforming the way people work. Very quickly, this is just a quick word on the platform that we provide called Watson X. It's a platform that provides this governance capability to scale safely, the ability to build AI within that, and contain and validate the data that the AI is using along all of the trends that I've described. So what else might we see, just in closing, in 2024? Well, I can foresee the situation where LLM agents are going to start to perhaps fulfill tasks autonomously. And indeed, where we've got humans in the loop at the moment, some things are safe enough for us to run things autonomously. I think we'll see the multimodal experiences become more enterprise ready. At the moment, they're still in the realms of toys, but indeed, we're starting to see early uses in engineering and other areas where actually a text model talking to a video model and working very effectively in certain scenarios to really generate new business solutions. And certainly the areas of developing in towards AGI, which is really, in layman's terms, where we start to see a lot more human behavior in AI. We're not there yet, and many people say that we're a number of years away from that. But those advancements are happening rapidly, despite the various announcements that say we can now produce AI that's better than human. We're a long way away from that. But those advancements will continue over the next year. So in summary, we've danced through a number of topics. I think really, if I was to leave you with some messages, one of them is AI is there to augment human humans, not to replace them. That's IBM's view. And indeed, there are many use cases that really could enhance that area. I think it's a case of not using technology just because it's there. I think it's about using that technology to really transform the enterprise. So start with the outcome, don't start with the technology. I think it is incumbent on us all to understand the risks and understand the ethics around AI and implement AI in a safe, ethical way. And indeed, work with organizations such as ours that have immense experience that can help you look at not just how you use tooling, but how you really support that tooling with the right structures and ethical decisions that you need to make around AI going forward. And I think the last thing is really accept that this market is moving quickly. It has massive benefits to it that really could be harnessed by any organization, but to remain open-minded and indeed see where the benefits are going forward. So that's really all I had to say right now. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to your questions.